Welcome to the Lemonade and Sunshine podcast. We are your hosts, Kimberly
and Sherri.
We're going to be talking to real people who have made lemonade with the lemons in their lives to help strengthen other people with their challenges.
We all need to know that there's hope and light even on our darkest days. And if you've ever felt alone in your struggles, and who hasn't, come and listen and sip lemonade in the sunshine with us. We'd like to welcome our guest, Bri. She is 31. She's been married almost 8 years. She has a 4-year-old Quincy, and she's lived in St. George, Utah for 24 years. She has a bachelor's degree that she says she doesn't use but loved getting. And she's been doing Airbnb since 2014. And right now she has one Airbnb, and she also manages 2 Airbnbs for other people and says that it's the perfect part-time mom job. She loves to read and hang out with family, preferably outside. So Bri, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you for coming on.
Of course.
So tell us a little bit. Oh, first, if you had 2 hours to do whatever, what would you do?
Probably read a book.
Oh, nice.
Like with a snack, just like a snack and a book.
Yeah.
Like that's what I used to do. That was my days. And I rarely get to do that uninterrupted, So if I had uninterrupted time, like a good snack and a book, that just doesn't get much better.
Sounds pretty good. Outside. How about a good snack?
Outside would be great.
Mm-hmm. I feel that.
I know. That's one good thing about being in St. George. You can be outside almost all year, right?
Yes, we love that.
Yeah. So every person that has struggled with infertility has a different journey. And so do you want to tell us a little bit about your infertility journey?
Yes, I'd love to. So I have been experiencing secondary infertility going on a little over 2 years now. So it took us 9 months to get pregnant with my daughter. And that didn't seem like the end of the world or anything, obviously. I didn't expect it to take that long, but we were like, once we got pregnant, we were like, sweet, okay, here we go, And then once she was born, we knew that we wanted our kids close in age. We both have siblings that are 18 months apart from us, me and my husband. So we knew that we liked, that dynamic. And then going into trying to get pregnant again with the first time taking us 9 months, we were like, well, it might take us a little bit again. So we started trying again when she was 9 months old, and people thought we were nuts. And so once again, it took us 9 months to get pregnant. So, the joke became it took us 9 months to conceive and then 9 months to grow the baby. And that was just what we thought was going to happen from now on. So, we did end up getting pregnant again. And we went in for our anatomy scan. I was 22 weeks. And that was Gab's first time coming to an appointment. So he was all excited to hear the heartbeat and actually see the baby that time. And our ultrasound tech had to deliver the news that there was no heartbeat. And so the next morning I had to deliver our baby boy, which we didn't know that it was a boy yet. We had planned on being surprised by that. So we found out during the ultrasound that it was a boy, and he had actually passed about 2.5 weeks earlier from how small he was. So I delivered him the next morning, and the doctor, as soon as he saw him, was just like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. His umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck and shoulders and legs multiple times really tightly. So he called it a cord accident, which is very, very rare, obviously. And even for him, he's very conservative of actually calling it that, but he felt very confident that that's what happened. So it was just a crazy thing that happened, nothing we could have done. We didn't feel the need to do genetic testing or anything. It was just a crazy thing we had to experience.
So hard. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really, really hard, of course. So anyway, after that, we, of course, jumped right back into trying to get pregnant. And I totally, for a little bit felt kind of like I was owed a baby, because I had just lost one, and thought I was going to get a little farther into this part.
I know it's hard. You're doing great. You're doing so good. Thank you for sharing this, Bri.
Yeah. So I definitely was like, there's no way that it's going to take us that long again. God's going to bless us with a baby soon. And Now we're 2.5 years into this, almost 2.5 years. We've had quite the journey of, trying to get pregnant again. And it's like, that's what's so weird about secondary infertility. I've been pregnant twice. What's going on? Let's get this party started. So yeah, I have tried many, many things, which I'm sure a lot of people that are struggling with infertility have tried. But some of the things that we have tried so far is obviously timed intercourse. We have had one IUI. I've been on Clomid 3 times. I had a hysteroscopy, which is when I had polyps in my uterus, and so they removed those. We've tried pre-seed. We do ovulation tests. Yeah, we've tried all of that, and then we kind of got to the point where my doctors are saying IVF is the next step, which I totally get where they're coming from and obviously respect their opinions as doctors. But when it came down to the actual decision of let's start IVF, I was just, nope, not ready. Can't do that yet. And it's been kind of crazy. I'll probably talk about this on a later question, but I had a surgery in January related to all of this. And I thought that I was going to want to do IVF immediately after I felt better from the surgery, because one of the weirdest parts of my infertility journey is the fact that we have a 4-year-old and we wanted our kids 18 months apart. So I have just been beside myself wanting to give her a sibling, and just the age gap is just crazy to me, So I just thought I wanted to start that immediately so I could get that age gap down. That was my mindset. And then once it came down to it, like I was about to start the first medication that they put you on for IVF, and I was just like, nope. And I all of a sudden got this calmness that a few more months is not going to do much in the end. You can give yourself a few more months to try other things before you go through that. Like, I just went through surgery. IVF is another really big deal. I was able to get this calmness of I don't need to panic about age gaps and getting immediately pregnant. And that was a huge blessing to just relax. It's going to happen. Yeah. So right now we're trying some other things before we go with IVF. So that's where we're at right now.
Thank you for sharing that, Bri. So you mentioned trying other things, and I think for those listeners who are in the midst of infertility, they would love to hear about some of the alternatives that you've discovered to traditional fertility treatments like in vitro. And so we're hoping that maybe you could share that with us.
Yeah, I would love to. The more that I learn, the more passionate I'm getting about it. And I am obviously super grateful to have IVF. I'm glad it's there. I will probably go there if it comes down to it. But, I'm obviously not an expert on all of this stuff. Just from my experience, what we have been trying since my surgery is acupuncture, which a lot of people use while they're going through IVF and IUI treatments. So it's that's a very well-known thing to help with fertility. So I'm just trying it, on its own. And then along with that, my acupuncturist has been giving me Chinese herbs to help. And I have felt great from the acupuncture. I'm trying all these things at once. So I'll never really know what exactly is doing it for me. Just, I don't know, sleep and energy levels and just an overall feeling of better health. I've definitely felt that these last few months.
You need that after surgery anyway, after recovering and all of that. Recovery is tough, so that's great.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. It's been awesome, and she's been so great. She was actually an OBGYN for 30 years back in China before she came to the U.S., so she knows that side of things too. So she's been really awesome to cater the appointments to me, and she's been able to do red light therapy on my scar during my appointments.
I heard that's really good too.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's just an actual red light, and it's just the frequencies of that light are healing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. So that has been a really cool experience. And what I have to say about that is just it's so important to find people who you vibe with, and who work well with you. I've felt it's been so great that she knows, and I'm grateful to have found her. She knows the OBGYN side and she knows the side, and it's really cool to have found. So I found her, and then I found the other thing I'm doing right now is chiropractic care. Mm-hmm. And that has been crazy because he starts with x-rays and come to find out my neck is straight up and down instead of curved, which is how it's supposed to be. So he's working on fixing that. And, the whole point of both of these things, acupuncture and chiropractic care, is you're trying to get your body to function the way it was designed to, So with chiropractic care, your nerves, they go through the spinal cord. And if your spinal cord is, they call them subluxations, if they're starting to close up and there's not that mobility, then your nervous system isn't going to work how it's meant to. So along with my neck being super out of place, I have, I want to say 12 subluxations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've got a lot going on in there. And the other thing is my pelvic bone is 12 millimeters higher on one side.
Right. Wow.
So he's fixing that. And, all of those nerves that are going through, the ones by the pelvic region, they're connected to all the reproductive organs. The ones up top with my neck and stuff, that's connected to your hormones. So there's a lot of things that they can do to help your body function properly. Our bodies, they're meant to get pregnant as women. And that's your sign of health. So the fact that I can't get pregnant is telling me there's stuff going on. And instead of just going straight for IVF to basically force a pregnancy, right? That's kind of what IVF does. I'm just trying to get to the root cause, which fertility doctors aren't really after that. They're not going to dive deep with you. They're going to offer a treatment.
Right. Bri, what made you go this kind of alternative route? What made you decide to look other places other than just, hearing what the doctor says and going that way? What made you do that?
I've always kind of tried to look at things, I guess holistically is the word to use. I love that world. Love it, love it, love it. But when I was so July of 2020, I had a chemical pregnancy, which is basically a pregnancy that doesn't take. I had an embryo that my fertility doctor said it was trying to implant, and what probably happened is it tried to implant on a polyp instead of my uterus. So I was a week late and I was like, I'm pregnant. Of course I'm pregnant. I've never been late. I'm pregnant. But I kept getting negative pregnancy tests and then found out that that's what happened, because then my period was like a week long, which is crazy for me. So yeah, what it really was a chemical pregnancy, like a super, super early miscarriage. And so when that happened, I was like, I'm going to be on this. I'm not waiting around. I'm going to get on this like right away, which was my mindset. But really, these things take a long time. Yeah. So when I finally got into my doctor and my OBGYN, she was very optimistic that everything would just be fine and I would just get pregnant, give it a little more time. And I pushed. I was like, no, I want to see a fertility doctor. I want to get this going, So when I did see a fertility doctor, and this was a doctor up north because they're busy people and I couldn't get anyone down here to see me. So we were going up north for a while and they put me on Clomid and then did a water ultrasound to check everything out. And at that time, they discovered a 3-centimeter endometrioma on my left ovary. They tested it. They're like, we don't think it'll be cancerous. You're really young, but we're still going to test it. They did. It wasn't. It's pretty common. And they said, we don't want to do anything about it because there's nothing you can do except get pregnant and those pregnancy hormones shrink it, or it's surgery, which you don't want to have abdominal surgery if you still want kids.
Right.
Yeah. Don't you think not getting pregnant definitely causes women issues because we're made to get pregnant?
It did for me.
For me too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're made to carry children, and when we don't, then we have other issues, right?
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, so I worked with that clinic for 6 months, I think, and they're the ones that told me about my endometrioma. They did the hysteroscopy, scraping the polyps from my uterus, put me on Clomid, and I was a different person on Clomid. Kim knows this, and Kim has experienced this herself.
Yeah.
But, Clomid is not fun at all. And I felt weird. On Clomid, and they wanted me to keep going with Clomid, and I stopped after 3 times. I was like, I'm not going to keep putting myself through this. And it's obviously, it hasn't worked yet. It's not this magic pill that's going to instantly get you pregnant.
Yeah, it's like you're PMSing all the time, not just 1 week, but all the time,
Yeah. But it took a while for me. Like, you take it on cycle day 3 through 5 or something. And then it was a week later. So I didn't know what was going on. I forgot And then it like clicked. I was like, oh yeah, I'm on Clomid. That's what's going on here.
Listen, my husband wouldn't have made it if I'd had to be on it. He would not have. He's like, you are crazy enough as it is. No way.
Yeah, it did. It definitely made me feel crazy. And
Wow, you guys.
I didn't have the greatest feeling about it. So I stopped after 3 months, even though my doctors wanted me to just keep going. I did one IUI while I was on Clomid. You know, they tried all these things and I just had to take a break. I was just done. And then last year in August, I started having pain around my left side of my pelvic area. And I remember that first time it happened, I was doubled over and I was, what is going on? It was so random. I thought it was random, but I think it was around ovulation time. But I just started having this really severe pain and it lasted for like a week and then totally went away. When I was in pain, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get this figured out. I got to call a doctor, blah, blah, blah. And then it went away. And I was like, probably wasn't that bad. It's probably nothing. And I tend to kind of be the opposite of a hypochondriac. I'm not one to call a doctor. My body will figure it out. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, she's strong and she can take a lot of pain.
I guess.
She is.
So when it came back, my husband's really good at knowing this about me and pushed me to call the doctor. So I got in for an ultrasound and they discovered that my endometrioma was now 6 centimeters. So it had doubled in size in the matter of, I don't even remember, 8 months or something like that. Not even, because I found out about it at the beginning of the year and this was August of 2021. So probably 6 months it had doubled. And when I was talking to my doctor, like, what's going on? Why is this growing? He told me it was the Clomid. And I was like, that would have been kind of nice to know. You know, I did 1 round of Clomid and then had that ultrasound. And so they knew that I had an endometrioma that first month. And no one told me that the Clomid could have a possibility of growing that. They were just encouraging me. And I'm sure that's what it was. They wanted me to be on Clomid to get pregnant because that's what shrinks them. So I see their mindset, but I'm really glad that I listened to my intuition on not doing more rounds of Clomid. They would have let me keep going probably 3 more times. So yeah, I had that first ultrasound. It was 6 centimeters. I had a follow-up ultrasound 6 weeks later, and it was 7 centimeters. So it was growing really rapidly. And, you know, healthcare is kind of hard. You have to be the squeaky wheel.
You have to be your own advocate.
Yeah.
So hard. You have to be so demanding. And
be that person that you don't want to be, but you do have to look out for yourself.
Yeah, that's something I've learned throughout this really well. So we went up north for Christmas, and the whole time I was there, I had to have a heat pack on my stomach. It was like going all day, and it had never been that often or long of pain. Usually my pain would last a few hours, and I would just have to put a movie on for Quincy, and we'd hang out on the couch while I slammed that heat pad into me. It's the only thing that would touch it. No pain med could touch that kind of pain, so I just lived with my heat pad and for months and months. And then, yeah, when I was up there for Christmas, I was just like, man, this is crazy. It's never lasted this long. It was a week straight, almost all day. We drove home the afternoon of Christmas and got home, went to bed, and I woke up at 2 a.m. in excruciating pain, and it had never been bad enough to wake me up ever. I had talked to the doctors at this point multiple times about it and doctor office people, and they had just hammered it in. If your pain gets too bad, you need to go to the emergency room because your tube or ovary could be twisting and that could cause you to lose it. So I probably could have suffered it out for the night, but I was scared, obviously, that that's what was going on. So I ended up going to the ER, and it wasn't twisting, which was a good thing, obviously, but the only thing the doctor could really tell me was it probably kind of moved and hit a nerve, and that's what had made it get that bad all of a sudden. But it was kind of a blessing because it kind of kicked my doctor into gear of like, yes, she 100% needs this surgery, and soon. Because we were talking about how you kind of have to be the squeaky wheel to get healthcare, basically.
Right.
So that kind of got that going, and I was able to have the surgery early January, so just a couple weeks out from my ER visit. And this was a very long-winded answer, but you had asked me what made me choose this kind of holistic care. I mean, it's a lot because I did go the other route, and it honestly didn't work out great for me in this instance. There's just a lot of stuff that went into it, and I'm not blaming or whatever. The Clomid kind of set off a series of events that led me to now being down to only one ovary and one tube, and it was actually, by the time of the surgery, the endometrioma was 8 centimeters, which is like tennis ball size, and he actually couldn't get it out with what the surgery was supposed to be originally, which was just the 4 small holes, a laparoscopy.
Right.
It ended up having to be a C-section.
Jeez.
And so it turned into just a much bigger deal than I ever thought it would. And it's obviously not great, you know, when you're trying to have kids to have had abdominal surgery. So I'm just going to try everything I can for as long as I can be patient to just do everything to just get my body back to optimal functioning and doing what it's made to do and what I know it can do. So that's my goal with taking this route.
Right. Well, I love that there's different opportunities and different things that people can do. And I like that you've, opened your mind to those other avenues that you feel like are a better fit for you.
Yeah. And that's what this has led me to. Is I have never been more in tune with my body and my cycle and what seems like it's working. I've found Instagram accounts. There's just all this information out there. And I found a couple that I vibe with really well. Everything these people say, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me. I can take this. That sounds like it's going to work for me and I can implement it. And I know if it's working because I am very aware of all those things now, which has been awesome to learn.
To be more in tune with your body.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important. I mean, everybody has a different journey and different experiences and a different body. I think sometimes when we don't understand something, like people who haven't been through infertility might take a blanket approach of how they think everyone should handle it, but everybody's different. And I love that you're seeking to take care of your body and seeking alternatives like that. And I think a lot of people listening will appreciate that and the information that you've shared about that too.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I'll just quickly share what I'm going to try next.
Cool.
My chiropractor care is really intense right now. I'm there 3 times a week. So I'm not able to start this new therapy until that's done because I actually can't get it down here. It's only up north. And I learned about it from a podcast. So hopefully I can tell someone else about it. But it's called Mercier therapy. And it's basically really deep pelvic massage. And it's used a lot for C-sections and for endometriosis, both of which, I'm dealing with. Again, it's just anytime there's blood flow and mobility to an area, that's what you're wanting.
Right.
And that's what they concentrate on is just, again, making that area work optimally. So yeah, that's a 6-week course once a week. They also put you on supplements and stuff.
And Bri, how do you spell that and what is it called again?
It's called Mercier therapy. It's after the lady who kind of invented it. And she got told that she would only be able to have children with IVF because she has really bad endometriosis. So, and her name is spelled Mercier.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people who struggle with infertility have endometriosis. I know I did.
Yeah.
And so that's really helpful information.
Yeah.
For, I would think, most people.
Yeah, it was really cool to hear her talk. She was just saying, of course I'm not anti-IVF or anything like that, but the fact that so many people kind of jump straight to that without ever hearing about anything else is just nuts. Don't get so invasive right away. There's other things you can try. It's going to be less invasive.
Right.
Help your health overall and cheaper.
Yeah.
So it's an awesome alternative,
Right.
Yeah, and that's a good option. So what do you think has been the most challenging thing? I mean, you've shared a lot, but just about infertility in general, what is the most challenging, do you think?
Just besides the confusion of what's going to work for me, what do I try, who do I listen to? Because I keep saying this, there's just so much information out there. So I've had to learn to wade through all that and, again, just really get in tune with myself and trust myself to know what's going to work for for me. So that's been very challenging logistically. But the other challenging thing about it has just been truly learning to surrender to God's timeline and the plan that He has for me, because I'm a planner and I'm, I never ever thought this would be part of my life, especially coming from a family of 7 kids, I don't think this is going to be a thing. And it is. And I've just had to decide to be positive, because what's the alternative? I'm not going to be miserable during my daughter's little years, the years when she's so little. And just kind of not giving up what it could have been, but, being so close to having 2 kids. And I remember that year, my miscarriage was in late January. So early January, it's a new year, and I was just thinking about the year ahead. And that was the year that I turned 30. So I was imagining my birthday, and I was imagining taking my picture in front of my cake, and I would have my cute husband and my cute little she was going to be 2, and then my little baby in my lap, my little 3-month-old baby in my lap. And I was just overwhelmed and just oh my gosh, what a picture perfect day that's gonna be. And so just learning that my life is still great, everything's gonna be fine. It didn't work out the way that I thought it would, and I never thought that this would take this long, or that I would be going through it this intensely, So yeah, that's been very challenging, but also just, of course, all challenges have those blessings tucked in.
I think that that's really hard, to surrender our will to God and just let go of what we want. And especially when you experience something really hard like you did. But I think that there's peace. Sherri and I talk about, where's the sunshine in it? I think there's peace in surrendering to Him.
Yeah.
Even though it's hard, there's comfort that comes and peace. And that kind of helps you get through it.
Absolutely.
At least I felt like that.
Yeah.
So what things have other people said or done that might have been hurtful and not helpful? What can we learn to be supportive in infertility and in what you went through? Has there been anything that anyone has said that has been hurtful?
My fertility doctor, I asked him a question, and he was like, well, due to your age, it's I am 31.
Yeah.
Geez.
Yeah.
I think I'll be fine.
Yeah.
That was an interesting one. I was kind of put off by that a little bit.
What Kim and I would do to be 31.
I know. That's so young.
Yeah, that's a very normal age to start having kids these days.
Yes.
So
yes.
If that's his attitude, that's not super great. But I really haven't had a lot of that.
That's good.
I've had a couple friends tell me that they don't know how to talk to me about it, or they kind of feel bad bringing it up and don't know if I want to talk about it. And I get that, because I'm not super open about it on my social media, stuff like that. Not for any real reason besides I don't know. I just don't.
Yeah.
It's just kind of awkward for me, I guess. But I have great friends that do bring it up. And this far into it, I feel kind of annoying and it's my whole personality and the only thing I have to talk about, because it's my everyday.
It's encompassing you. It's been encompassing you for years. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am very grateful for my friends who do talk to me and will ask me about it. And they're not offended if I give a short answer, which they kind of figured out means I don't really feel like talking about it that day. And then they've also been great when I blab for 30 minutes about it. There's 2 sides of that. So, yeah, I think really just there's no harm in asking about it. But if you do it in a nice way and aren't pushy, and nice for me also means don't ask me about it in a group setting.
Yeah, not at church or in public, because it's an intimate conversation to have, right?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
I think that would be universal, though.
Yeah.
I think.
With anything, huh? Yeah.
Sherri, what other questions do we have for Bri?
I don't know. I think that she's done an excellent job of, informing and just giving all these different options. I think that's so good. Have you heard of other things that you might try after the Mircea therapy?
I haven't looked into it much beyond that. Well, I guess I'll share this. This is just one of those, I spend a lot of time on this side of social media. So there's no doctors pushing this. There's no professionals pushing this. It's just girls being like, hey, I tried this and it worked for me.
And it worked.
Well, this is kind of a funny little awkward thing, but hey, you know what? If my role is to come on and say it, so be it. So there's a lot of girls online that talk about how they got pregnant was after they have intercourse, when they know they're ovulating, obviously, they put a menstrual disc in and leave it overnight. And it's kind of
like the cup?
Yeah, there's the cup and then there's the disc, which is a little different because it sits in a different spot, like closer to the cervix.
Okay.
I have seen literally hundreds of girls talking about this.
Wow.
Really?
And I'm like, gonna try that next. Might as
well. That doesn't hurt anything. I'd have been trying that right away.
Yeah, why not? Harmless.
I had somebody tell me that I needed to do a handstand.
I have been told that, yes. I have tried that, yes.
I think I did too.
Because why not?
You did too.
I think so, yeah. You're just so desperate that you just will try, like whatever people tell you. It's hard.
Yeah.
Oh, when I was growing up, my sister used to tease me, and I guess I was asking her what goes on with a tampon, and she's like, well, you have to stand on your head, and then that's how you have to put it in. And I totally believed her. I don't know why I would believe her after she'd done things to me always. Yeah, that's how she told me it had to happen. Not that this is the same thing, but I think the disc is worth a shot.
Yeah, I think so too. Might as well.
Yeah. Maybe do the disc and a headstand.
Combine them.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, Bri, you've been so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us. This has been so great.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Yeah, you're amazing. We love you, and thank you for coming on and sharing with us.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's been very fun hanging out with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bri was so good to come on and share her story with us. Our second interview on today's episode is with Kaisha, so we'll just jump in and get started with that interview.
We are so happy to be interviewing Kaisha today. She lives in Utah and works as an orthodontic assistant, and she's worked in the dental field for 9 years and loves it. Her husband and her have been married for 5 years, and they started trying for a baby in 2019. And after many miscarriages and fertility treatments, she was finally able to get pregnant on her own. And she now has a 6-month-old baby boy, which is a miracle and beautiful blessing. Kaisha, welcome. Thank you so much for being willing to interview with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So happy to hear your story, Kaisha.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Kaisha, we'd love to hear the infertility journey that you took and kind of what your story looked like. Can you share that with us in an overview kind of a way?
Yeah. Okay. So we started trying back in August of 2019, and we were actually able to get pregnant really quick. Within 2 months of trying, we got pregnant. And then we had, in December of 2019, we had our first miscarriage. So that was all, natural. We didn't have any problems. So 2019, December, we had our first miscarriage. It was twins. So, we got pregnant again in March of 2020. We were excited. I was a little bit worried, obviously, because, when you have a miscarriage, that's in the back of your mind all the time, just being worried about that. We ended up miscarrying again. So I'm like, oh no, okay, something's not right. Maybe it's just a fluke. Maybe it's just 2 miscarriages, so we got pregnant again, and I ended up miscarrying again in July 2020. So at that time, we're like, okay, something's not right. So we ended up, I went and had some testing done. In 2020, I went and had an HSG test done where they inject dye into your uterus to see if you have like a polyp or a fibroid. And at the fertility clinic I went to, that's the first test they did. So they sent me back to my OB. Looks like they saw a fibroid in my uterus. So I had a hysteroscopy. I had a hysteroscopy done in fall of the 2020. And of course, they went in, they found nothing. So more answers as to why we actually did not have answers. Sorry. No answers as to why we were having all these miscarriages. So my doctor, my OB said, I'm not sure what's going on. It's best for me to transfer you over to a fertility clinic. So we started our fertility journey at a clinic in March of, in the spring of 2021, we started our fertility journey and started doing timed intercourse. So I started doing the Femara to help me ovulate and did the trigger shots and everything.
Is the Femara like a Clomid type thing?
Yep, the Femara is exactly like Clomid. So I did 2 times of the fertility timed intercourse with no luck. We did one last shot at it and I ended up getting pregnant. I ended up miscarrying again though. So by that time, that was my 7th miscarriage. In between all that time.
7th.
Yep. In between all that time of trying in August of 2019 to 2021 in October is when I miscarried during that last treatment of fertility.
And that was 7 times in that 2 years. That is discouraging. I really can't even wrap my head around that.
Yeah. So at that time, we decided that was the most my doctor wanted me to try, the timed intercourse. So we met again and tried to come up with something else, our next step of moving forward. And at that time, she had told me that surrogacy was going to be my best option just because of how many times I had, I'd miscarried. And so that I was hurt because I had always wanted to, I think like any woman wants to be able to carry their own child, and having the news of not being able to possibly carry your own child is kind of a gut punch in a way, just because when that's what your hopes and dreams are, and the doctor's telling you that that's probably not an option. So we took a break. I said, okay, I'm done. I need to take a break to heal from all of this grief. And when the doctor told me that surrogacy was going to be our next best option, it was hard. And so we decided that I just needed a break. I needed a break to heal emotionally, mentally, physically from having 7 miscarriages. I needed 2022 to just be my year to be able to heal and, focus on myself, and try and figure out what our next step would be. But the Lord had different plans for me. Man. And in December, I got pregnant. So a few months after that appointment, I got pregnant, and I had stopped every medication. I had stopped everything. I stopped doing everything that my fertility specialist had told me to do during that time. And I got pregnant miraculously. And I don't know how I did, but I know that it's because of Heavenly Father that I was able to. It was truly a miracle, because my track record of being able to keep babies was not good. And so to be able to get pregnant on my own without any help, truly was a miracle. So yeah, that's kind of a long version of kind of how our journey was so.
Well, that wasn't a long version. I can't imagine the roller coaster ride that must have been, the ups and downs. And I mean, how do you put your hat in the ring after even 5 miscarriages to say, yeah, let's try this again? I mean, that's got to be so hard.
And just the high highs and low lows. I think your story is just, evidence that really this is all in God's hands.
Yeah.
I mean, each of us in our journeys are in God's hands, I feel like.
Yeah.
Not everybody's story turns out with them being able to get pregnant and have their own baby. Not everybody's story works like that.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I feel like everyone's miracles are different. Not everyone's stories, like you said, end up with a baby in their arms.
Right.
Along the way, there might be miracles that they see in their life. Because during that time that I was going through all the miscarriages, it was so hard to be able to see those miracles that were happening during the lows. But looking back now, on the other side of it, being able to see God's hand as he was guiding me throughout all of that, is amazing. So I agree. Not everyone's story ends up the same as mine, but that doesn't mean that their story is any less hard. It's still a hard journey to go on.
What would you suggest? What would you say to someone who is experiencing miscarriages like you did, and what would you say to those people who care and love those people as far as how to support them best?
Yeah, so I would say to those that are in the midst of infertility right now, to just hang on. I know that's easier said than done when the grief that you're feeling is overwhelming. When it feels like you're drowning in sorrow. I know that's a lot easier, but I promise that things get better. That things may not turn out the way that you have envisioned your life going. I know we all have this mental picture of how we want our life to go. And sometimes it doesn't, well, all the time it doesn't end up going the way we think it's going to go. But if we hang on and have faith, a lot of my journey has revolved around my faith in Jesus Christ. Holding on to that faith is what has been able to carry me through the grief and the sorrow that I felt. So I would just say, hang on, hang on to the Savior. Grab his hand to let him carry you throughout your trial. So that's what I would say to someone experiencing grief and infertility. And then to answer the other part of your question, what I would say to those around that are trying to help and don't really know what to do, the biggest thing for me was when people just showed up for me. A lot of times there's not really the right thing to say in infertility. You don't really know what to say either. So the biggest thing that really helped me the most was just having people show up for me. Texting me, just checking in on me, just showing that they cared, and that they were there for me if I did need anything, went the furthest than those trying to solve my problems for me.
Yeah, or by sometimes trying to fix it, which we can't. I know in Infertility Part 1 episode, we had Chelsie on and she said, I don't need a solution. I just need somebody to be there.
Exactly. And that's exactly right.
Thank you, Kaisha. What, on the flip side, what is the hardest thing that someone said to you, or the least sensitive thing, so that people know what is the wrong thing to say?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they say trying to help and they just don't know what to say. But what are those things?
Yeah, I think the one I got the most was always, at least you know you can get pregnant. I know a lot of times people try to use that to help me feel better. At least you know you can get pregnant. But it doesn't make you feel better when all of your outcomes are not what you were hoping them to be. So that one was extremely hard to hear. Another one that was hurtful was, at least you weren't as far along as so-and-so, or at least you were still pretty early throughout your miscarriage. And I feel like a loss is a loss.
Yeah, they were sort of dismissing it like, oh, well, it was early, so didn't count, but it counted to you.
Exactly. I think it discredits the life that these babies had, even though they may have not been able to develop as far along as some of those other ones. And it, no matter the stage of loss, I feel like it's still a tragedy and it's still heartbreaking. And yeah, so that's another one that I got frequently as well.
I love that you're sharing that, because I mean, like we said, people mean well and they don't mean to hurt, but I think this is a good little heads up, like that isn't maybe the most productive thing to say. So I love that. And I love your faith in Jesus Christ, and you saying that is really the sunshine that came out of all of this. Is it deepened your faith, it sounds like.
Yeah, it absolutely did. When I had nothing else to hold on to, the only thing I had left was my faith in Jesus Christ and Him helping me be able to get through the despair that I felt. So,
thank you, Kaisha. My next question was, how has it helped you grow closer to God? But I think you answered that.
It has definitely helped me be able to have faith in His timing. My timing looked a lot different than what His timing was. And I think a lot of times we can become impatient with the timeline. And I know I did. I wanted, I wanted that baby in 2019 when we had first trying, and that's not when. That's not when my baby was supposed to come to me. He was supposed to come to me in September of 2022, not in August of 2019. So trusting in the time that He has is one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and knowing that He's aware, that He knows what's best, even though we feel like we know best. He knows best, and He knows what we need. He knows that I needed to grow as a woman, as a daughter of God. He needed to know, I needed to know that I could handle these things, and I needed my testimony to grow. And so He knows best. I've learned to trust in His timing in all things.
So it's interesting, because don't you think those are some of the blessings that came out of this trial? Is you were strengthened as a person, your faith was strengthened, and also, how did it feel when you finally had your baby? Do you think that joy was intensified for you because of the struggle that you went through? Yeah,
I absolutely feel like the joy that I felt was tenfold what I would have. I'm sure I still would have been so ecstatic to have a baby at that time, but I think the loss that I had felt just made the joy even more.
Just more sweet, even more sweet.
Yeah, being able to hold him in my arms and was really a spiritual experience, and being able to feel heaven and feeling those babies close around me that we had lost as I gave birth to our little baby. So yeah, I feel like the joy was tenfold of what I would have felt at that time.
Well, I don't know about
That's
you,
beautifully
Sherri,
said.
but yeah, I'm crying over here just thinking about what you said and knowing how much you suffered and struggled with this, Kaisha. And so thank you for sharing.
Yeah, there was a quote that I had found, or that I had saved when I was going through infertility in that part of my life. And it said, "Though you didn't move the mountains, Lord, or part the waves of pain, I can see you've been here all along." And I think that's so true. In, he didn't part that pain. He didn't take away that mountain. He helped me climb the mountain. He helped me. He carried me when I couldn't walk anymore. He lifted me when I couldn't take another step. And I think in our, in all the struggles that we face, whether it be infertility or any other trials in our life, that mountain might not be moved. But he gives us the strength to overcome that mountain and to climb it and to carry us through up the mountain. So I just love that quote that I had heard.
I love that too. And with God, all things are possible, right?
Kaisha, you are...
Oh, that was so great.
I know. You are wise beyond your years. And that was so beautifully said. I don't think we could have said anything more beautiful. That was just amazing.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kaisha. And enjoy that little baby.
Thank you so much.
We're so grateful that Bri and Kaisha were able to talk to us today and share their stories. It's really hard to share those intimate details, and we're so grateful for their willingness to do so.
Yeah, and they did it with such openness, and we appreciate the access to the details of their journey. It's really personal and it's tough, but I think it's going to make a difference in some people's lives. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. Just make people know that they're not alone.
So, Sherri, before we wrap up this episode of Infertility, I just wanted to discuss a talk given by D. Todd Christofferson, and it is called The Doctrine of Belonging. He gave the talk in October of 2022, and it can be found on churchofjesuschrist.org. It's a really good talk, and in it he talks about the body of Christ. He quotes from the first epistle in Corinthians, a quote from Paul, "For as the body is one and hath many members, and all the members of that one body being many are one body, so also is Christ. There should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care one for another. And whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it, or one member be honored, all the members rejoice with it." I love that because we should be there for one another always. And I think that's what we're trying to do here with this podcast, is to be there for one another and help support each other, because if one of us is hurting, we all hurt and we need every member. And so in this, he's talking about belonging, and he just mentions many examples of difficult things that make people feel like they don't belong. But this is the first talk that specifically talks about the challenges of infertility. And in 23 years, I've heard it mentioned
briefly.
Yeah, briefly with other things, but never specific to infertility. And it was so validating to hear that and to have them discuss the challenges of infertility that way. It just made me feel validated.
Well, this whole talk, I was thinking as I was rereading it again, this is your story. I mean, what happens with this lady that is in sacrament meeting and feeling completely alone? I thought, oh my gosh, this is kind of what happened with you that Mother's Day, that you were feeling so alone in sacrament meeting and looking around at all the mothers and feeling like people were looking at you like, well, you're not a mother, just feeling that barren feeling. And then you finally got through sacrament meeting and then into Sunday school, and it was fine, and then Relief Society, and then somebody mentioned something that just was more than you could take at that point. And this is so similar to this woman's story. It was just amazing to me, but you'll have to read the story if you want to find out what happens. But yeah.
It's a really good talk. There are so many things in it that we would love to share, but for purpose of time, we won't. We'll let you discover it on your own. Right, Sherri?
Yes. And one thing I wanted to say is I love this particular part that says belonging comes not as we wait for it, but as we reach out to help one another. So we feel more belonging when we serve and help others and get out of ourselves and do for other people. We end up feeling that belonging. That's why service is it's selfish in a way. I always feel a little bit selfish because it makes me feel so good to serve other people that I'm like, of course, that's Jesus's way. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And again, like what we kind of want to do with this podcast is make sure that people aren't feeling alone.
And spread sunshine, right? And I think that's what service is. It's helping people. Sherri and I were talking before recording, and we were talking about this talk. And I was saying how when I was having my hysterectomy during that time, as I mentioned in Infertility Part 1, I didn't want to have that surgery, but what got me out of feeling sorry for myself was serving others. And that really saved me during that time that was particularly difficult for me. So I 100% agree. Sherri. Service saves us in many ways. Mm-hmm. We just want to leave you with this last thought from D. Todd Christofferson's talk. He says, we can feel joy as we pursue individually and communally the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. Despite disappointments and setbacks along the way, it is a grand quest. We lift and encourage each other in pursuing the upward path, knowing that no matter tribulation and no matter delays and promised blessings, we can be of good cheer, for Christ has overcome the world, and we are with him. Being one with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is without doubt the ultimate in belonging. Thus, the doctrine of belonging comes down to this. Each one of us can affirm, Jesus Christ died for me. He thought me worthy of his blood. He loves me and can make all the difference in my life. As I repent, his grace will transform me. I am one with him in the gospel covenant. I belong in his church and kingdom, and I belong in his cause to bring redemption to all of God's children. I testify you do belong. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen, is how he closes.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, you guys. Well, stay tuned for another great episode of Lemonade and Sunshine. We're happy to have you come back and join us at another time. We would love to hear from you.
Yes, we really would. So please give us your feedback.
And let us know if there's any topics you'd like us to cover.
And how you have found the sunshine with the lemons in your lives.
And how do they give us feedback, Kimberly?
You can find us, Lemonade and Sunshine, on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple iTunes. Please give us a review and rating. It really helps us as a new show.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely does. So until next time, we hope that you can feel the sunshine.
And we hope you will tune in next week to Lemonade and Sunshine.